After Silver emerged victorious against Goten, the next round would be Trunks versus Ranch. Silver would help up Goten, and both fighters would laugh about their match while walking off the stage. Manic watched them both and gave them a thumbs up, telling them how awesome of a match that was and how cool they were. While they talked, Trunks and Ranch eyed each other as they approached the stage. Trunks comments on how his dad beat her dad before. Ranch counters Trunks by saying that she isn't her father, and he isn't his dad. She would prove to him that she is the strongest out of their group. Once they got into their positions, they bowed and wasted no time slugging each other. Trunks would go for a sweep kick only for Ranch to flip backwards onto her hands and push off to get some distance, firing a ki blast off while doing so, causing the boy to block. Once he did, Ranch would land on her feet, then shoot off at Trunks and land a solid kick to the face, then spin to kick the side of his head with her other foot. Trunks would get sent flying, but recover quickly and fight back at the girl. He would fake her out with a punch to the face, then deliver a punch to her stomach. Once she grabbed her gut and hunched over, he would cup his hands together and bring them down on her head, making Ranch eat tired. From the sidelines, Raditz and Vegeta yelled for their child to win before glaring at each other. The rest of the Z Fighters watched, very amused and entertained at the children, with Goku commenting that he's surprised that neither have gone Super Saiyan yet. Trunks would wait for Ranch to get up and ready herself before they went at it again. Each clashing punch, every clashing kick, met with a resounding shockwave before they both locked hands, trying to force the other down on one knee. Both their energy surging as they yelled and fully assumed their Super Saiyan form. The crowd yelled and cheered as the two fighters smirked at each other. Ranch commenting that Trunks wasn't half bad for a stuck-up rich Saiyan, with Trunks firing back that he's also surprised with him, seeing as she was always raised to be in the rear view of everyone else. Manic watched in awe. This is the first time the little Heiji has seen strong powers aside from his mother and father, and he really was getting excited. Ranch and Trunks headbutted each other and glared before they both leaped back and charged their energy. Ranch yelled to Trunks that it's over for him as she readied her father's signature double Sunday. Trunks responded that he won't hold back on her just because she's a girl, and started to ready a Gallic gun. Their fathers are very proud. Once they were ready, they fired off their respective ki blasts and began struggling against each other. Trunks was starting to overpower Ranch, and she was starting to get pushed closer and closer to the edge. Trunks was starting to brag and celebrate earlier. Bingo. Gotcha. Ranch started to surge with power as she yelled out Kaioken ×4 and pushed Trunks back over the edge. With quick thinking, he started to fly, but she flew faster than he could follow and kicked him in the chest before bringing them both down to the ground. Right as they got within a foot of the ground, she kicked off of the backflip onto the arena, spiking him into the dirt. Trunks slowly started to pull himself up from a crushing defeat, but he was met with her hand. Ranch smirked at him and told him that he didn't do half bad, and she was surprised that he pushed herself to use the Kaioken. Trunks smirked and feigned that he was holding back, to which she just said, whatever, as they got off the stage. Vegeta looked shocked as Raditz began to brag about his daughter winning. They both looked at each other, and Vegeta told Raditz that once they get on that stage to fight, he would shut up Raditz and prove that a low-class wimp like him will never match up. Raditz would comment that it's been proven that the Saiyan class system is flawed, and that this fight just proved it. Goku got between them and separated them before they started fighting at that moment. Once both fighters were off the stage, the announcer brought Silver, Manic, and Ranch together and said that Manic's next opponent would be decided by coin toss. The coin was tossed, and it was decided that Ranch would be fighting Manic. The announcer reassured her that she would be given time to rest before they were set to fight, taking the needed time to relax her muscles and body from the Kaioken and getting tossed to the ring. Ranch would talk to Manic and ask him if he knows how to go super like the others. Manic would confirm that he knows how to turn super and knows how to use the Kaioken, so their fight won't be a bore. Ranch eyed him up and told him that he better not disappoint because she won't feel bad if she hurts him. Manic had a look of determination on his face. He wasn't going to lose to Ranch. He was going to prove that he was stronger and make his father proud. After a while of waiting, it was time for Ranch and Manic to enter the ring. Both fighters bowed to each other and assumed their fighting stances. Quickly, Manic rushed at Ranch and vanished. Before she could realize where he went, Ranch was launched to the other side of the ring by a homing attack. Before she could recover, Manic rocketed to where she was and kicked her high into the air, then Luke kicked into a spin slash. He then grabbed her and began spinning and launched her back to the stage. With quick thinking, Ranch managed to stabilize herself and landed on her feet, then shot back up at Manic. Manic went to kick at her when she got close, but his leg was grabbed as he was pulled in before getting elbowed in the gut. Raunch glared at him, then began unleashing a meteor combination attack on the Hedgehog, then hit him with a Saturday crash. Manic was launched a few feet away, but started to power up into his super form. He wiped some blood off of his face and taunted Raunch to come at him. She powered up into her own super form and charged at Manic. Without reacting, he was kicked across the face, but vanished, then reappeared under the half Saiyan. He unleashed a spin dash and shot to her chest, striking her repeatedly before finishing with a quick roundhouse to the face. Raunch spit out some blood, then raced back at Manic. They both clashed, then flew at the ground. For a minute, they had vanished completely, their speed untraceable by those who were not used to this. Every time they clashed, they bounced to the edges of the arena and shot back in for more. They both used Kaioken ×3, and the aftershock from their fighting started creating small craters in the arena that started to worry the Z fighters. Realizing they couldn't keep this up for long, both of them charged up a Kamehameha, then fired it. The second beam struggle was starting to build up, and some of the Z fighters were considering stepping in to end this fight since it was starting to go a bit too far. Manic pushed himself to Kaioken ×4, and Raunch quickly matched him, though everyone could see he was starting to strain himself. He was forced on one knee and tried to keep up. In a last-ditch effort, he used ×5 and pushed the beam back at Raunch, who was overtaken by the beam. Once the smoke cleared, she was still standing, and she limped over to Manic, who was also struggling to stand. When they both were in range, they punched each other in the face and flopped on their backs, their forms reverting back to normal. Everyone went silent, then suddenly, Raunch slowly started to stand, with Manic's eyes slowly opening. Raunch rose to her feet and limped to Manic, grabbing him by his quills and dragging him to the edge of the arena. He flailed as best he could, but her grip was too tight. As he got to the edge of the ring, Manic in a last-ditch effort grabbed Raunch's legs and tripped her, managing to make her fall off the edge, followed by him. Once the match was called in favor of Manic, Sonic and Raditz rushed over and carried their children away, the audience clapping and cheering for both of them, and their kids. Their bodies were strained and damaged to the point where even a ring or two didn't fully heal them. They had overexerted themselves to near death out of pride, but they didn't care. All that had mattered to them was making their parents proud. Seeing as it would take some time for Manic to be rested up, the announcer called for the adult division, with the winner of the tournament going up against the champion. Yes, Hercule is still the champion here. I mean, he is the strongest Z fighter. Okay, I kid. While the cleanup crew starts to put the ring back together, 4 more fighters join the tournament: Yamu, Spopovich, Shin, and Kibito. The brackets are as follows for round 1. Vegeta vs. Shadow, Videl vs. Spopovich, and Tien vs. Gohan. Vegeta and Shadow eyed each other and glared, Vegeta commenting that they'll have no problem beating this rodent into a fine paste, and Shadow stating that the prince will be shown what a true warrior looks like. It didn't take long before the arena was ready, and they wasted no time making their way. Once they were ready, both immediately went into their super forms and rushed at each other. Their friends watched in awe at their power. Yes, they kept up their training in the years that followed after the Metarex, but this was on a whole different level. They both traded blows, going for body hits, face shots, and everything in between. Vegeta would fly high up in the air and ready a final flash before sending it. Shadow would stand and watch it approach him before teleporting just before it hit him and landing a heavy kick right along Vegeta's back, sending him into the arena. He would then slowly lower to the ground, then use Chaos Control to freeze time. Shadow would approach Vegeta and stop time, and start throwing Chaos Spears all around him. Once he felt there were enough, he snapped his fingers, ending the stop time and causing all of his Chaos Spears to hit Vegeta. The Prince, furious at the Jet Black Hedgehog, charged his energy and rushed at him. Shadow smirked and went on the defensive, trying his best to block and deflect Vegeta's onslaught to open him up for a counterattack. From the sidelines, Bulma was cheering on Vegeta, though can tell that she's getting a side-eye from Gerald. Tails is using his data pad to analyze both fighters, but noticed that there's a weird energy coming from where the waiting area is. Then his data pad switches to analyze Vegeta, and from what he's seeing, Vegeta's energy is skyrocketing. While the two clashed, Shadow got ready to use Chaos Control to freeze time. Just before he did, Vegeta surged his energy before time froze. Shadow went to use his Chaos Spears as before, but noticed Vegeta's finger twitch, causing him to jump back. Once time resumed, he questioned Vegeta on what the hell he just do. Vegeta feigned ignorance and fired a big bang attack at Shadow, who kicked it in the air. He flew at Vegeta and used Chaos Control again, freezing time once more. Vegeta smirked once he heard Shadow use Chaos Control and surge his power, causing the Hedgehog to tense up. Shadow threw a Chaos Spear at Vegeta and stopped time, and to his shock, Vegeta deflected it, then traded blows, trying to outpunch the other. Realizing that his Chaos Control won't help him much here, Shadow removed his inhibitor rings and Vegeta cackled. This was what he was waiting for. He pushed the rat to his brink while he was still just getting started. You see, in the time that followed after the Metal Sonic and Metarex saga, this version of Vegeta is pushing himself more than in canon. Essentially, his training is akin to what he was doing on Beerus' planet, just without the Divine training him. Knowing about Chaos Control and feeling the power the Emeralds hold, he's been doing Emerald Focus training to acquire his own link to the limitless power of the Chaos Emeralds. When Shadow went to throw a punch, Vegeta caught it and squeezed his fist. He looked Shadow in the eye and uttered Chaos Control, freezing Shadow in place. He then held his hand and fired a big bang attack at Shadow. Once time resumed, Shadow was launched back into the arena wall. He started flying to keep himself from touching the ground and flew back in at Vegeta, who said that Shadow made one hell of a miscalculation. Shadow growled and landed back on the stage and took a deep breath as he started to focus his energy. Vegeta, not wanting to give Shadow the chance to ready himself, fired a Gallic gun. Amy, watching from the sidelines, saw what Shadow was doing and went wide-eyed. It's the same energy she felt when she helped the Seedrians escape King Cold. Yamu and Spopovich watched and they nodded at each other while Shadow powered up. Shadow yelled and his quills began sparkling with electricity. He told the prince of no one to come at him, to which Vegeta happily obliged. Both fighters unleashed a meteor combination attack with Vegeta fully powering up into Super Saiyan 2. Shadow let loose a barrage of Chaos Spears, causing Vegeta to either dodge or deflect. Once Shadow had an opening, he rushed at Vegeta and punched him in the face, but to his shock, it did little to nothing as the Prince of Saiyan slowly turned his head to look at him. Vegeta cocked his fist back and nailed Shadow in the chest, knocking the wind out of him before spin-kicking him into the arena. Shadow hit the ground and looked up to see Vegeta lowering himself to him. Vegeta then began bragging that Shadow could never stack up to a Saiyan elite like him. He then went to kick the down Shadow to knock him out of the ring, but Shadow grabbed his leg. Checkmate. Shadow charged up his energy and yelled Chaos Blast as a large energy wave encompassed the arena, just stopping shy of the announcer. Once the smoke cleared, Vegeta was on the ground, unconscious, but not dead. Once the match was called, Shadow started to limp off the arena but reverted back to his base form and collapsed. He didn't want to admit it, but Vegeta was good. In fact, better than he expected. If it wasn't for his Chaos Blast, Vegeta absolutely would have knocked him out, or worse. Everyone rushed over to Shadow and Vegeta and helped them out of the area. As they would do this, they sensed a powerful energy and it fell off. Seeing as their match isn't until the second round, Sonic and Amy go to investigate but told everyone else to stay put. They got this one covered. The other Z-Fighters nodded, and the two Hedgehogs instant transmitted to where the energy was. To their surprise, they found an entire city leveled and razed to the ground. When wondering what did this, Sonic dodged a stray Ki Blast from what looked to be another Hedgehog. When the Hedgehog looked at Sonic, then to Amy, he smirked. This was going to be easy. Sonic questioned who the Hedgehog was, to which he only replied, Nazo. The Hedgehog teleported to Sonic and kicked him away, then appeared behind Amy and spiked her to the ground. He then teleported to Amy and charged his energy before telling her to give him the Chaos Emerald she has on her, or he will kill her. Sonic wasted no time in turning into a super form and rushed at this new Hedgehog. Nazo went to blast Amy, but she kicked his arm, and it brought her feet together and kicked her adversary into the air. Sonic used his homing shot technique and appeared behind the Hedgehog before spiking him down to Amy, telling her heads up. She nodded and transformed into her ascended super form and flew up to rebound the Saiyan Hedgehog back to Sonic. They began performing the light speed attack, then launched him at the ground, causing a massive crater to form. Sonic and Amy landed, thinking they had knocked the new guy out. Once they got too close, the new Hedgehog fully healed and shot a beam, piercing Amy in the chest, causing her to fall back, reverting her out of her super form. Sonic quickly checked her, and luckily she was still breathing. Nazo commented that Sonic was just wasting his time, causing him to scream. His yellow radiance reverted back to a pitch black. It was the return of the Dark Form in all its glory. Nazo raised an eyebrow before being kicked away faster than he could react. Dark Sonic flew at him and began rapidly punching him across the face, then kicked him to send him flying. He then flew in the air and then dive-bombed to Nazo, pushing him into the ground further and further. He then held up a hand to Nazo's face and yelled, unleashing a large energy wave, leaving nothing but Nazo's arm left. Dark Sonic then flew off, getting Amy and using instant transmission to head back to the arena. Unbeknownst to Sonic, Nazo not only regenerated from just his arm, but Bobbity was watching the whole fight and he liked what he saw. Sonic's dark form, it could be just what he needs to add another puppet for his ranks. Once Sonic got back to the tournament, he got a ring to Amy and saw Videl fighting against Spopovich. He reverted back to normal, and surprisingly the girl was holding her own against the behemoth of a man. They were trading punches with neither seeming phased. Videl started unleashing a flurry of kicks, pushing Spopovich closer to the edge. Right when she would ring him out, Spopovich grabbed her leg, then spun her around before slamming her on the ground. Videl coughed up blood before she felt herself slam again. More blood started to stain the arena, and Gohan started to get angry. Spopovich threw Videl to the side of the ring. The girl slowly managed to stand and wiped her mouth before assuming her fighting stance again, which shocked everyone present. Raditz commented to Gohan that he sure knows how to pick him, but Gohan wasn't listening. Spopovich charged at Videl, then grabbed her, lifting her up. Right as he would try to crush her, she headbutted him and kicked him across the face, forcing him to let her go. Once she touched the ground, Videl shot off her feet and elbowed Spopovich in his face, then followed with a leg sweep. She then hopped on top of him and began rapidly punching him in the face. Spopovich had had enough and grabbed Videl by her face, causing her to squirm to get out of his grapple. The behemoth slowly rose to his feet, still holding the girl, and began to punch her in the gut repeatedly, then slammed her into the ground. Before she could get up, Videl was stomped on her chest, making her cough out more blood. Right as Spopovich would stomp again, Videl rolled out of the way, then vaulted to her feet. Everyone could tell she was on her last legs. Videl knew that she couldn't knock Spopovich out at this rate. He might kill her. But she also couldn't just surrender. There's one thing she could try to do, but it's a gamble. She's screwed if she doesn't pull it off, but she's even more screwed if she doesn't even try. Videl backed away to the very edge of the arena and put as much distance as she could between her and Spopovich and cupped her hands together. Everyone felt her energy slowly rising. Spopovich stared at her and slowly approached, laughing to himself that this girl couldn't do anything to him. Unfortunately for him, this is What If Videl, not Canon Videl. Since she was trained by Gohan with the assistance by Raditz and Goku occasionally, as well as being in the Room of Spirit and Time for 3 months inside, this version of Videl is an actual threat. Videl yelled as she unleashed a full-force Kamehameha. Spopovich trying his best to guard. The girl, knowing what will happen if she fails, put everything she had left into this beam. Spopovich started sliding back more and more until he felt his heel on the edge of the ring. Gohan, seeing this, yelled Videl to do it. Videl stopped the Kamehameha and rushed at her adversary, and delivered an upward kick to knock him onto his back, causing him to hit the ground. Videl, looking at the crowd as they cheered, struck her signature pose and gave a chuckle while doing so before getting hit by a ki blast. Spopovich slowly rose and walked over to the down girl and grabbed her face. Everyone heard her muffled screams as her head was slowly being crushed. Gohan was done. He powered up into Super Saiyan 2 and flew at Spopovich, but was held in place by a mysterious force. Knuckles noticed that one of the contestants was doing something to hold Gohan in place and rushed at him. Yamu, seeing the clear opportunity, raced at Gohan and stabbed him in the side with the energy-draining device, forcing Gohan back to his base. Once they got as much as they could, Yamu nodded to Spopovich, who let Videl go and kicked her away before flying off back to Bobity's ship. Goku and Raditz hurried over to Gohan and Videl and gave them both a ring, then nodded to each other and headed off to follow Yamu and Spopovich. Knuckles tried to hit this short, white-haired contestant, but was stopped by the bigger, white-haired one. They walked over to the still recovering Gohan and Videl and assisted in healing them, while explaining who they are and what they're doing. Their names are Shin and Kibito, and that they are here to prevent the revival of Majin Buu. A wizard by the name of Babidi is trying to revive Majin Buu, and if that happens, the universe is doomed. They tell everyone there that they knew of Yamu and Spopovich and that they were here to get the energy of strong fighters. Their plan was to let them get energy and head back to where Babidi is hiding, then ambush them there and get the egg containing Buu away. With Goku and Raditz following the two minions, it shouldn't be hard to track them down. Sonic, Shadow, and Gohan offered to go along with them to provide backup for Goku and Raditz, but Vegeta told Gohan to stay back while he goes along in his place. Gohan tried to protest, but Vegeta didn't care, telling him that he was knocked out of the tournament while Gohan wasn't. Not to mention, he needs to stay with Videl in case something happens. That seemed to do the trick, and Gohan stuck around while the others flew off. Meanwhile, Goku and Raditz were tailing Yamu and Spopovich. They both narrowly evaded a ki blast. When they checked to see the origin of the blast, they saw a Saiyan hedgehog flying towards them. They got into a fighting stance, and the Hedgehog got ready to fight, until he saw Sonic and Shadow show up. Babidi spoke in Nazo's head, telling him to make Sonic assume his dark form. He has a plan. Once Sonic saw Nazo, he was shocked. He thought he killed Nazo. Nazo smirked. He knew how to piss Sonic off. All he had to do was threaten Amy. Nazo admitted that Sonic's strength did indeed catch him off guard, but his regeneration is unbeatable. Once he beats Sonic here, he'll kill Amy. He would enjoy every second of it and make sure that she would be unrecognizable, even in death. Sonic started to growl as his energy began rising. Goku didn't want to hear anymore as he, Vegeta, and Sonic rushed at Nazo. Nazo laughed and began dodging their attacks while still taunting Sonic. Shin told Raditz and Shadow to continue following Yamu and Spopovich while the other three handled Nazo. Sonic was getting angry and angrier by the second, and all Nazo had to do was finish him off.
Oh yes, Sonic, and don't you worry. I'll be sure to send you along with Amy once I'm finished with her too. But that's not where I'm going to stop. Oh no. I do know you have a child, don't you? I believe his name is Manic, if I presume correctly. Don't worry, Sonic. I'll make his death the most brutal and painful out of the trio. It'll be a happy family of suffering. A good trifecta, if you ask me.
That was it. That was Sonic's limit. His absolute breaking point. Sonic went from his super form to his dark form and rushed at Nazo. He managed to get in some solid hits. To everyone's shock, Nazo was laughing as Babidi popped into Sonic's head. Sonic yelled and tried to fight off Babidi's manipulation, but to no avail. His anger and hate toward Nazo were too strong and gave Babidi the entrance he needed. Sonic yelled as Babidi was now in control and made him attack Goku and Vegeta. The Majin emblem appeared on Sonic's chest and he rushed at the two Saiyans. Dark Sonic, now amplified by the Majin power, rushed and pushed Goku to have to go all out. Vegeta, seeing that Kakarot is keeping Sonic busy, started trading blows with Nazo. Nazo eyed the prince inside while dodging his attacks. He told Sonic to take it from here as he's going to get the Chaos Emerald off Shadow. As he tried to fly away, Vegeta fired a Gallic gun at Nazo, but it was blocked by Sonic, who jumped in the way. Dark Sonic growled and held his hand up at Vegeta and threw a Sonic Wind at him. Vegeta countered with a regular Ki Blast, but Sonic wanted him to do that. Vegeta was punched across the face and spiked to the ground. Goku flew up behind Sonic and grabbed him in a headlock, causing the enraged Hedgehog to struggle to get away. Vegeta, seeing an opening, flew at the two and kicked Sonic in the chest and went to punch him. Sonic grabbed Goku's arm and swung him around, making Vegeta's punch nail Goku in the spine. Dark Sonic then kicked Goku into Vegeta, making him knock his comrade away. When he did, Sonic then homing attacked him in the chest and began spin dashing, starting to tear through his armor. Vegeta quickly spiked Dark Sonic down and fired a Big Bang attack, actually managing to damage him. As Yamu and Spopovich made it back to Babidi's ship, they quickly entered and made their way to Babidi. The unfortunate thing is there wasn't enough energy. The fortunate thing is, as Dark Sonic is fighting Goku and Vegeta, he is steadily gathering energy for Boo's revival. However, Babidi is livid that those two led the other fighters to his ship. In his anger, he kills both Yamu and Spopovich. Once Shadow and Raditz enter the ship with the Kais, Babidi sent his minions after them. Shin told the two fighters to be careful. Babidi isn't someone to mess around with. He probably has a plan. Right as he would say that, they would sense Sonic's power rising. They don't know what's going on, but they need to hurry. The first minion they faced was Yakon, though it didn't take long since they had to get a move on. The next minion they faced was Pui Pui. Just like Yakon, Pui Pui was taken out quickly and they didn't have time to mess around. As Raditz and Shadow made their way closer to Babidi, the wizard got terrified. That is, until he could feel something evil. Taking a look at Raditz, then to Shadow, his grin grew bigger. Call it luck, but there was something about Shadow that was naturally evil. Maybe if it was attitude, or maybe it was something in him that he had no control over. Babidi already had two hedgehogs under control, not to mention this new one has a Chaos Emerald on him. Babidi started to work his magic on Shadow. Shadow started to fight back while the Kais and Raditz watched. Shadow told them to run as he didn't have much time as he pulled out his Chaos Emerald. Babidi was a little surprised that Shadow had more fight in him than Sonic, but no matter. It didn't take long until Shadow was overtaken by Babidi, the Majin emblem appearing on his chest. Babidi ordered Shadow to kill Raditz and he obliged. Raditz was too slow as Shadow appeared in front of him and kicked him across the face, then followed up with a Chaos Spear. Raditz fell back and tried to get up, but Shadow stopped him. The hedgehog grabbed Raditz by his hair and pulled up his head. He looked at the Saiyan in the eyes and told him to fall. Raditz stared at Shadow in fear at first, then his eyes went wide. Shadow then tossed him up and uppercut him in the gut before letting the Saiyan fall back to the ground, unmoving. Once Raditz was done for, Babidi and Dabura revealed themselves as it was now only the Kais that remained. Babidi told Shadow that he was impressed. Now it was time to end this. Shadow looked at Shin and Kibito and slowly started walking toward them before holding his hand up at him. He yelled at them to fall before him. They both stood in shock before Shadow yelled again to fall, his facial expression changing. Getting the hint, Shin and Kibito dropped to the ground as Shadow then fired his ki blast. He hit Nazo, who had just entered behind the Kais. Babidi and Dabura looked in shock, but they didn't have much time to wonder what happened, as Dabura was then hit by a double Sunday by Raditz, who was already on his feet. Raditz commented to Shadow that after he was hit by the Chaos Spirit, he knew Shadow was up to something but didn't know what. Once Shadow had told him to fall, he knew to take a dive, and he was right. Shadow's uppercut barely pierced his armor. If the Hedgehog was fully taken over by Babidi, he would have killed Raditz right then and there. Babidi questioned how Shadow managed to resist his magic. Shadow replied that he already had to deal with being controlled by the likes of Frieza and Black Doom. His purpose is to be a protector and defend all light, and he'll be damned if he reverts back to what he used to be. He has a lot of repenting to do, but he'll do whatever it takes, starting with Babidi. Shadow smirked before looking at Nazo and getting in a fighting stance, taking off his inhibitor rings, while Raditz chuckled and cracked his knuckles, looking at Dabura. Nazo, however, wasn't in the mood for fighting. He used Chaos Control to warp Babidi and the Chaos Emeralds he had collected, and Boo's egg away to a new location in the canyons. Back at the tournament, while everyone's wondering what to do, they can sense the others fighting and figure that they should go help out. Gohan, Tien, and Metalix flew to assist in whatever was going on, with Amy, Knuckles, Videl, Other Shadow, and 18 to stay and keep an eye on things here as well as the kids. To their shock, though, they were missing. Everyone looked around the area, but they were nowhere to be seen. When they asked where they could have went, some tournament officials said that they saw them heading out when Yamu and Spopovich flew off, which means they've been gone for some time. Amy was terrified and furious. Whatever was going on, the kids did not need to be out there without anyone keeping an eye on them. As Dark Sonic is fighting Goku and Vegeta, he started trying to fight back for control, but nothing was working. Goku and Vegeta were starting to run low on energy, and Dark Sonic capitalized on it. He knocked them around and got ready to finish them off, but was kicked away by Metalix. He glared at the robot, who powered up into his super form, and told Sonic to take a chill pill. Gohan and Tien followed up behind him and got ready, though they tried to do their best to help Sonic snap out of it. Dark Sonic wasn't listening and went to attack all three. What they didn't know is that any damage done to Sonic was being converted into energy for Boo's revival. Close by, they felt an explosion as Shadow and Raditz were fighting Dabura, who wasn't having an easy time keeping up. Dark Sonic looked over and instant transmit to Dabura. Once he did, he knocked away Shadow, who stared at awe on him for a moment. Dark Sonic then went to go for Raditz, but Shadow called out to Sonic, yelling that he's too cowardly to take him on by himself. Sonic stopped in his tracks, then turned to Shadow, who recalled the events that happened back on Namek, and that Sonic can't beat him. Dabura, knowing what Shadow was doing and was potentially up to, tried to get Sonic's attention, but Sonic wasn't listening. Getting frustrated, Dabura spit at Sonic to turn him into stone, but Sonic dodged it and warped in front of Dabura. He delivered an overhead kick to send him into the ground, then homing attacked him. Once Dabura hit the ground, Sonic began beating him brutally through the surface, pushing him deeper and deeper, then held up a hand and blasted him. Dark Sonic then teleported back up to Shadow and stared him down. He remembered what happened back on Namek, when Shadow beat him and humiliated him. Both hedgehogs slowly lowered to the ground and got in a fighting stance. Shin saw this and got between them, telling Shadow that he can't fight Sonic. If he or Sonic start taking any damage, then it'll help Boo's revival. He didn't say anything when they fought Babidi's minions because they killed them quickly, but if he doesn't plan on killing Sonic, then he can't allow them to fight. Shadow didn't care. He was going to fight Sonic and knock Babidi's influence out of him. He held up his hand to Shin, which shocked Sonic. Shadow said that what he did to Raditz was a ploy to get him out of a bad situation. This blast was meant to put him down if he didn't move out the way. The same went for anybody else who wanted to jump in. This was just between him and Sonic. Shadow began powering up a ball of energy and began forming. Shin looked in fear before moving out of the way, telling Shadow that he's making a big mistake. Everyone watched the two hedgehogs go back and forth with each other. It was like watching their Namek fight all over again. Sonic started pushing Shadow back, only for him to transform into a super form and return the favor. Goku started to sense where Nazo could be and finally got a lock on him, Surprisingly, they were close by. He told Vegeta and Raditz to place their hands on him. Goku told Gohan, Tien, and Metalix that if things get out of hand, to do what he had to do before disappearing. Dark Sonic, furious, began spin dashing in place. Shadow started doing the same. As once they revved up enough, they launched at each other, bouncing off rocks and the ground. Shadow and Sonic caused shockwaves from their fighting. Babidi was cackling with excitement. With Shadow and Sonic fighting, Boo's revival will be realized. Nazo sensed Goku and the other Saiyans near and prepared for a fight, telling Babidi to watch over the Chaos Emeralds while he deals with these cretins. While Shadow and Sonic beat each other to near death, Manic, Trunks, Ranch, Goten, and Silver are nearby, spectating the onslaught. Manic looked terrified. He's never seen his dad like this before. Shadow started to beat Sonic, throwing him around until Sonic caught his fist, then yanked him in to look him in the eyes before headbutting him. Shadow flew back and Sonic quickly caught up to him. He used his Chaos Energy to teleport a Ki Blast behind Shadow to launch him back. Every time he came back, Shadow would get struck in the face and shot back, only to be brought back again. Dark Sonic kicked Shadow toward where the kids are, not knowing they were there, using his homing shot. Silver ran over to Shadow and looked up at the incoming homing shot. Dark Sonic's eyes went wide as he teleported in front of them and blocked his own attack. Shadow, feeling weak, looked up at Sonic, wondering if he had finally started to break Babidi's control. Dark Sonic turned and went to aim at Shadow, but Manic ran over and hugged his leg, begging his dad not to kill Shadow. He looked down at Manic, and his eyes went wide as he started to fight back for control again. His fur started to glow white, then yellow, then it started to flicker a deep purple. Everyone present watched as Sonic kept flickering purple as he let out a loud yell before assuming a new form. Gone was the dark form. From Sonic's rage and want to protect everyone with a little of Babidi's magic, erupted the dark spine form. Sonic looked at Shadow for a moment. He snapped his fingers as the Majin emblem disappeared from him and Shadow's body. Babidi's influence was completely severed, but it was too late. Everyone could sense Boo. They had failed. Sonic told the kids to go somewhere safe with the Kais as it was too dangerous for them to be here. The egg opened slowly and out popped Majin Buu. Babidi cackled again and commanded Buu to help Nazo kill Vegeta, Raditz, and Goku. Buu would look around, taking in his surroundings, not really feeling like fighting. Babidi shouted to Buu to kill the Z Fighters, to which Buu said he didn't feel like it. He felt like playing. While Nazo fought against the Saiyans, he absorbed the negative energy from the emeralds close by and powered up, but there was one he was missing. Once Shadow and the others showed up, Goku filled them in on what was going on. Buu hasn't made any attempts to fight them. Nazo and Babidi looked at Sonic. What was that form? And how come he wasn't fighting the others? Sonic flew at Nazo as their fists met. Goku instant transmit behind Nazo and fired a Kamehameha. It was a direct hit, but Nazo quickly regenerated back as he laughed. Metalix flew in alongside Gohan, and they began to tag team him, quickly kicking and knocking him back and forth between each other, with Vegeta charging a Gallic gun and firing off, engulfing Nazo in the beam. While the Z Fighters fight off the Hedgehog, Babidi is still trying to get Buu to listen. The children watch from a distance as the pink blob was goofing off. While Buu is starting to get irritated by Babidi, he notices the kids and the Kais and turns his attention to them. He asks them if they are here to play with him, to which they nervously say yes. Babidi was not having this. He tried to force Buu to do his bidding, but with the Majin looking at him in a menacing way, this forced the wizard to back off. Goten and Silver, being the most immature of the group, enjoyed the idea, and Buu resonated with them. Manic and Trunks were hesitant at first, seeing as though they were pretty sure Buu was their enemy, but since he wasn't fighting them, he shouldn't be too bad. Ranch was indifferent, but if them playing with Buu was stopping him from being a threat, then they better not mess this up. Babidi watched in disgust as Buu and these other children played hide and seek, tag, and other games. They were distracting his tool of destruction, and he needed them gone. He commanded Nazo to stop fooling around and kill the kids. Nazo obliged and warped to where Buu was, and unleashed a chaos torrent on the kids, prompting Silver to use his psychokinesis to hold it off. But he wasn't strong enough and was knocked back. Buu got mad and went to wail on Nazo, but he kicked the blob to the ground and appeared in front of Goten, holding his hand up to his face and blasting him. When he was finished, Goten was on the ground, unmoving, his energy dropping. Goku and Dark Spine Sonic watched and yelled before flying at him. Sonic, using the power of his new form, stopped time for a split second and punched Nazo through the back and out his chest. Nazo gagged and Goku appeared in front of him and quickly fired a Kamehameha. Just before it hit them, Sonic teleported away, leaving Nazo to get hit by himself. Boo flew over to Goten and picked him up, looking at his body. Boo used his magic to heal Goten as his wounds started to slowly heal, which shocked the Z-Fighters. This was supposed to be the thing they were supposed to be terrified of? Bobbity was furious. No, why is Boo helping them? Why can't he get control of Boo? He yelled at Boo to put the boy down and kill the Z-Fighters. Boo glared at Bobbity and yelled that he hated him, that he made Boo angry. Boo's anger started to get worse and worse by the second, and soon, another Boo formed, though this one was thinner and gray when compared to the fat pink one. This new Boo looked at his pink counterpart and declared that this faker Boo was going to die. Boo, still angry, said that he was the real Boo and began arguing. Bobbity and the rest were all confused on what was going on until the Boos started fighting each other, with the new one kicking the other around like it was nothing. The pink Boo was done with this faker and shot a beam at him to turn him into candy. The other Boo took a deep breath and blew the beam back, turning the pink Boo into a cookie. He then picked up the cookie and ate it, causing him to transform. He turned into the same pink as before, but still retained his skinny frame. Bobbity cheered that this had to be the Boo he was seeking to control. It took some time, but it finally happened. Vegeta, hearing the wizard, launched a big bang attack and killed off Bobbity. Shadow went to pull out his Chaos Emerald to give it to Sonic, but it was missing. Even more so, the other emeralds that were gathered had vanished. Boo looked to everyone and smirked as he got in a fighting stance. Right as he would get ready to attack, everyone felt a surge of power and was coming in the direction on the lookout. Sonic nodded to Goku, then grabbed Raditz and Gohan before instant transmitting to the lookout. Goku and Vegeta got ready and nodded at each other. They rushed at Boo and began trying to double team him, not giving him a chance to retaliate. Shadow would take a few pot shots at Boo, which only angered him. He let out an angered shout, then went to clothesline Goku and Vegeta. Tien flew in and began hitting Boo with numerous punches and kicks until his hand got stuck. Boo's head did a 180 and stared Ten Shinhan in the eyes as he started to slowly absorb him. Once he did, Boo began to change. He now had clothes similar to Tien and a third eye on his forehead. He looked at all the Z-Fighters and clasped his hands together. Goku pushed Vegeta out of the way, narrowly avoiding the Neo Tri-Beam. Back at the tournament, everyone else could feel the energy surging and quickly arrived to the location of Boo to see what was going on. To their shock, they saw the pink blob man with Tien's third eye and got into their fighting stances. Goku filled everyone present on what's going on, and that Sonic went to the lookout where Nazo is. Metalix, Other Shadow, and 18 all went straight for the lookout, while Amy and the rest stayed behind. At the lookout, Sonic, Gohan, and Raditz looked shocked. Nazo was standing atop the Master Emerald with all 7 Chaos Emeralds on their pedestals. He looked down at Sonic and the rest before smirking. He charged up the negative energy from all the emeralds and absorbed it, changing him into his own spin on the super form. Once the transformation was complete, Gohan asked Nazo what's his angle, and Nazo laughs at him. Not that it matters since they'll all be dead, but he seeks to become the strongest being in the universe. Since he can absorb negative energy, the potential growth for him is limitless. However, there is one entity that he can never surpass, the Master Emerald. Since it's a source of infinite power, he can never reach a power of infinity. So his solution will be to detonate the Earth, which will create a big enough blast to shatter the Master Emerald and scatter its pieces throughout the universe, along with its power. Gohan pointed at Nazo and proclaimed that he and everyone will stop him at all costs. Gohan transformed into Super Saiyan 2 and flew at Nazo, trying his best to land a hit, but nothing was connecting. Nazo chuckled, taunting Gohan to at least try to hit him. This was boring. Right when Gohan would land a kick, Nazo grabbed it, then spun and threw him into the ground. Sonic was next, and used his time break to hold Nazo in place. Once time was stopped, he then held up his hand to the Super Hedgehog and blasted him. Once time resumed, Nazo started to feel his body start to be consumed and managed to teleport a distance away from Sonic. Raditz began launching Ki blasts at Nazo, trying to obstruct his attention. Gohan slowly got out of the ground and started to power up. Sonic, sensing this, told Gohan to stop, but it was too late. The Master Emerald glowed bright as the Chaos Emerald shifted into the Super Emeralds, causing Gohan to go into his hyper form. He then blitzed Nazo, striking him in the chest, then following up with a spin kick across the face. Nazo, realizing he doesn't have much of a chance against Dark Spine Sonic and Hyper Gohan, saw an opportunity. Once he regained his composure, he looked at the two and admired their strength. They truly did surprise him, but what amazed him the most was how Gohan turned Chaos Emeralds into Super Emeralds, which isn't something he can do. Though this now works in his favor, as there is a new reservoir of negative energy he can absorb. The Super Emeralds lost their luster as Nazo absorbed the negative energy in them, achieving his own hyper form. Gohan and Sonic both delivered simultaneous punches to Nazo's face, but they did nothing as he blasted both of them away. Sonic then transformed into his hyper form and tried his best to combat Nazo, with Raditz jumping in only for both of them to get grabbed and slammed into the ground. At this time, Metalix and the others would be arriving. Nazo would see them and smirk before firing Chaos Torrents their way. Metalix and other Shadow powered up into their super forms and deflected the oncoming blast while 18 dodged as best she could. While Boo fights the Z Fighters, he manages to turn Knuckles into a cookie and ate it. He then starts to transform again. This time his fists seem to grow and he had the same mark on his chest as Knuckles. While Goku tries to think of a plan, Shin gets his attention. He tells Goku that the best thing they can do is head to the realm of the Kais, to which Goku is fully against it. It would mean leaving Earth to be destroyed. Shin would think for a second and start to take off his earrings. He would tell Goku to put one on, then give one to the strongest fighter here. When they do, they'll fuse together into a new fighter. Goku tells the kids and Krillin to go with Shin to safety, and that he'll be back for him. Shin then teleports himself, Krillin, Kibito, and the children to the realm of the Kais, while Goku handles things here. Goku considers instant transmitting to Sonic, but figures that he's needed where Nazo is fighting. He then looked to Vegeta to fuse, but Vegeta's not having it, saying that he would rather die than merge bodies with Kakarot. Goku yells at Vegeta, saying that Boo is going to destroy the world if they don't, to which Vegeta states he doesn't care before flying back to fight Boo. Goku then remarked that if they don't do something about Boo and Nazo, that Bulma and Trunks could die. That seemed to do something. As they bicker, Amy transforms into her ascended super form and began wildly attacking Boo. Boo started to get angry and stretched his arm out to grab her. Once he did, Amy smirked and surged her aura, making the hand explode into bits around her. Fortunately, Boo was hoping for this, as the bits came back together and reformed around her and brought her into him. Boo began to transform again, this time sporting a red dress. He did not like this look, but did like the intelligence all these fighters gave him as well as their power. Goku eyed Vegeta, telling him that it's now or never. Vegeta begrudgingly held out his hand and told Kakarot to give him the damn earring. Goku tossed it to Vegeta, and he put it on, causing them to fuse. Boo looked at this new fighter shocked and asked who they were, to which he replied that he is the fusion between Vegeta and Vegeta and Go... I'm sorry, I don't know what's... Vegeta and Go... Fuck yourself! Screw it, just call him Vegito. Vegito tells Shadow to head to the lookout while he handles things with Boo. Shadow, nodding, flew off toward the lookout, leaving Vegito alone to fight with Boo. Nazo was easily wiping the floor with other Shadow, 18, Sonic, Gohan, and Raditz. The only one giving him trouble was Metalix. Nazo would try his best to fend off the robot, but it was just no use. Metalix would come in for a gut check, but fake out and flip kick Nazo high into the air, then start throwing ki blasts and follow up with a Chaos Sphere. Sonic would then tell everyone to be on their guard, since Nazo's regeneration is unparalleled. Right as he said this, Nazo would appear behind Metalix and throw a punch, cracking the bot's face. From Metalix's perspective, his sight was compromised and everything went pitch black. Sonic and Raditz rushed in and threw a punch and a kick, trying their best to get Nazo's attention off Metalix. Nazo effortlessly dodged Raditz, then grabbed Sonic's legs and slammed him into Metalix, sending both of them flying into a nearby rock. Nazo then appeared in front of Metalix and grabbed him by the face, telling the bot that his arrogance and persistence ended here. Metalix tried his best to flail blindly and do everything he could to get Nazo off, but he just couldn't. Nazo then slammed him back into the rock and crushed his face with a smirk and a chuckle. Gohan fired a Kamehameha, but Nazo managed to stop it with one hand and chuckled as he started to walk toward the half sand, while still stopping the beam. He then was hit by a Chaos Spear in the back, causing him to fumble and be consumed by the blast, though he shrugged off the damage. Sonic asked Shadow what's he doing here, to which Shadow filled everyone in on everything and that they have to figure out a way to kill Nazo while Vegito deals with Boo. With that, Shadow, noticing the Super Emeralds, transformed into his Hyper Form and relished in its power, saying, "Not bad." Nazo commenting that Shadow donning a Hyper Form was redundant. Sonic, visibly damaged, flew over to meet Shadow, and they got ready to fight. Other Shadow collected Metalix's body and got it away, but it wasn't responding. No snarky remarks, no wisecracks, no nothing. Sonic and Shadow told Gohan and Raditz to get ready for 18 to provide backup. Nazo flew up and told them that no matter how much strength they could muster, there was no way they were going to beat him, but they are welcome to flail as much as they like, just like Metalix did. Vegito has to consider his options. He needs to get rid of Boo, but he can't just kill him or he might kill everyone inside, and some of those beings aren't able to come back because they've already been wished back by Shenron. Boo starts trying to attack Vegito, but to no avail as the fusion is very easily handling the Majin. He uses his split finger shot and manages to catch Boo off guard. Boo, very angry, starts using the Neo Tri-Beam at Vegito, who dodges effortlessly before appearing in front of Boo saying, "Boo! Scared you, didn't I?" Thinking of what to do, Vegito reaches an epiphany, but it's a gamble. If he can somehow get absorbed by Boo, but not fully, he could manage to get everybody out. Seeing as he doesn't have any other good idea aside from killing Boo, it's the best chance he has. Throughout their brawl, Vegito is doing his very best to taunt and piss off Super Boo as best he could, really harnessing his full potential from the Goku side. Thankfully, it starts to work. With a little push, Boo gets very angry. So angry that he turns Vegito into a jawbreaker. Unfortunately, that's a poor choice of candy to turn someone you're fighting into. Candy Jito starts to somehow wail on Boo and strike him at speeds that not even Boo can track. Boo is trying his best to eat the little sucker, but it's definitely not working out for him. It's going through his head, making him hit himself when he grabs it, and flying around him at breakneck speeds to make him disorient himself. Boo turned Vegito back to normal, to which the Saiyan powered up into his super form, taunting Boo to come at him. Everyone is starting to run low on stamina against Nazo, with the exception of 18. The Hedgehog smirked at everyone, asking if this is really their limit. He then turned his sights to Raditz and shot a Chaos Torrent at him. Raditz held up his arms to block, but was kicked from behind into the blast by Nazo. He fell to the ground, barely breathing, and tried to get up, but was kicked away. Gohan, mustering up what little energy he could, flew to Nazo, but was elbowed in the face, then was tripped as he stumbled back and planted on the ground with a stomp. Nazo laughed at the injured half Saiyan as he repeatedly kept stomping on Gohan's chest, making him cough up blood. Sonic and Shadow charged up their energy and flew to Nazo, who quickly turned and caught both of their fists. Nazo commented that he was sick of their interference with his plans, and now he was going to end them. He yanked them in, causing the pair to headbutt each other by accident, then grabbed them by their throats. He chuckled as he flew them into multiple rocks, bashing the duo into them. He then threw Sonic high into the air, then teleported above him, and hit him with Shadow. Once Sonic was in the ground, Nazo released Shadow, almost letting him fall peacefully to the ground, then spiking him with a kick to the top of his head. Sonic tried to get up, but Shadow collided with him, making them both revert back to normal. Nazo set his sights to 18 and slowly approached her. 18 got ready, but Nazo appeared behind her. The cyborg went to swing, but Nazo vanished with a chuckle. He was toying with her, and she knew that. Everyone else was unconscious, leaving her to attempt to fight this being alone. Nazo flew from under her and kicked her in her chin, dragging her through the air, then grabbed her by the collar of her shirt and threw her to the ground. Just before she could hit the ground or stabilize herself, 18 was roundhouse kicked toward other Shadow. Thankfully, he managed to catch her. He set her down gently next to Metalix and got in a fighting stance. If this was it, then he was going to go down swinging. With his super form and inhibitor rings removed, he was ready. Nazo shook his head and pointed to Sonic, Shadow, and Gohan, stating that those fools in their hyper form couldn't beat him. What hope does a weaker Shadow in a super form no less have against him? Other Shadow didn't answer. He just stood there resolute. He was going to die, but he was damn sure going to buy Vegito as much time as he could. Nazo cracked his knuckles and slowly walked to Other Shadow. Other Shadows started doing the same. Once they were both face to face with each other, Other Shadow began wailing on Nazo, aiming for the head and chest, to knock the wind out of him, or maybe damage him further than what the others did. Nazo just stood there and took it. He didn't move an inch, and just let Other Shadow tire himself out. Once Other Shadow went to wind up for a punch, he was shot in the chest by a beam. He fell to the ground and looked up to Nazo, his vision blurry. Nazo just looked at him for bestowing his own wisdom on the hedgehog. He told him that he may be Shadow, but he isn't the ultimate life form. He's just a cheap knockoff struggling to stay relevant. Nazo rated a Chaos Torrent but could sense a power spark. Is that Vegito? No, it couldn't be. He could sense Vegito separately from this power. No way it was Boo. It didn't feel sinister enough. This power, it was coming from Sonic and Shadow. Nazo went to fire the torrent at the crater he left the two in, but it was deflected. Sonic and Shadow rose to their feet, staring down Nazo. Shadow asked Sonic if he was ready, to which he nodded. They both shouted Chaos Control in unison, and there was a bright flash of light. When it stopped, Nazo was shocked. This blue hedgehog was standing there. It wasn't Sonic, though. It looked like Shadow, but Shadow wasn't blue. Who was this guy? Nazo kicked Other Shadow aside and asked who this fighter was. He replied that if Vegeta and Goku make Vegito, then Sonic and Shadow make Sundao. Wait, no, that sounds too stupid. Give him a second. Sonatic? No, we're getting there. We're close. Shadonic? No. Perfect. You can call him Shattuck, the ultimate fusion of Sonic and Shadow. Shattuck flew over to Other Shadow and gave him a ring, thanking him for keeping Nazo busy. Nazo at first was frustrated, but then started laughing as he proclaimed that they could try any trick that they want, but they would all die the same. Honestly, them fusing is a blessing and a curse. He can kill two hedgehogs with one blast, but unfortunately he can only kill them once. Shattuck smirked and taunted Nazo to come at him, to which he did. Shattuck transformed into his hyper form and began trading blows with Nazo. While Vegito is fighting Super Blue, he senses the surging power of Shattuck and smirked. Guess they managed to fuse too. Perfect. Those two can take care of Nazo while he handles Boo. Vegito taunts Boo again, telling him to make preparations, get a nap, or something to eat, because in a moment he will end things here. Seizing the opportunity, Boo absorbed Vegito, who had started forming a barrier. Once Boo absorbed him, he started to celebrate and laugh that he won, that he was stronger and better than Vegito. Shattuck and Nazo had taken their fight into space, with Nazo kicking Shattuck to the moon, forming a crater on it. Shattuck then instant transmitted behind Nazo and roundhouse kicked him to the back of the neck, sending him flying toward Earth. Once Nazo hit the surface of Angel Island, Shattuck had instant transmitted himself a few feet away. Nazo was pissed. This fusion was going to kill him at this rate. He needed to end the fight now. He then appeared in the air and created a giant ball of energy, and yelled that this will destroy Earth. Shattuck then charged his energy before yelling for everyone to lend him theirs. Other Shadow radioed his communicator to Gun, and told his commander to patch his signal to a worldwide broadcast. When questioned, the commander then heard Other Shadow to just do it. Once his signal was put worldwide, Other Shadow told the world that right now, there is a fighter trying to save the Earth, but he can't do it alone. He needs everyone, no matter how big or how small. We all have to give a little energy if we want to see another day. He then angled his communicator at Shattuck, charging up his power. Gohan, Raditz, 18, and Other Shadow himself all started to lend their energy to Shattuck. Nazo chuckled. This was all they could muster? This would be easier than he thought. Shattuck got ready to defend until he felt a wave of energy hit him. It was the Namekian people. They had seen the fighting and heard Shattuck needed energy. Shattuck smirked. Thanks, everyone. Now time to... There was another surge of energy, larger than the Namekians. Shattuck gasped. This was the many people of Earth lending him what energy they had. He took off his inhibitor rings and looked up to Nazo. This was it, the final gambit. Shattuck and the people of Earth versus Nazo. Nazo chucked the ball of energy toward the Earth, and Shattuck fired a Kamehameha, trying to hold it off. Nazo, angered, shot 4 balls of ki into the sphere, making it grow larger and harder to push back. Shattuck started to lose hope, but then he heard 3 yells. Gohan got back up and looked at Nazo. Next to him, Raditz stood, his hair silver like Gohan. He had done it. He achieved his hyper form in a desperate effort to stop Nazo. Lastly, Other Shadow. He had turned hyper as well. The 3 flew up behind Nazo, who looked in shock. Raditz ready to hyper double Sunday, while Gohan ready to hyper Kamehameha. The Other Shadow began spin dashing behind them. The Saiyan and Half Saiyan fired their ki blasts, forcing Nazo to use one hand to hold off their beams, as well as trying to push the ball of energy into Earth. Finally, Other Shadow shot off and nailed Nazo in the chest. Shattuck yelled for them to give it one final push before using the Kaioken times 20 and unleashing his energy. Nazo was sandwiched between both beams and shot into space. Once there, he started to gather his energy to try to destroy Earth again, but Shattuck appeared in front of him, the Super Emeralds floating around his body. He waved his finger, forcing the negative energy out of Nazo and back to the Emeralds. Nazo was forced out of his hyperform, starting to feel exhausted. Shattuck smirked once the Emeralds regained their color and shine, and utilized their full untapped power. Nazo tried to ready a ki blast, but Shattuck, with one touch, reverted Nazo back to his base form, then fully enveloped him in a point-blank ki blast, making sure there's nothing left to regenerate. Shattuck then appeared back on the lookout, but looked around in shock. For some reason, he couldn't sense Vegito, nor Goku and Vegeta. He couldn't have gotten absorbed, could he? Shattuck looked at everyone and told them to head to Capsule Corp, then search for the Dragon Balls. He has a feeling they're going to be needed soon. Shattuck instant transmitted to where Boo was and saw no sign of Vegito. Boo looked at Shattuck and laughed, telling him that it was too late. Vegito was already inside him. Stop it! Shattuck got ready to fight and saw his hyperform flicker back to base. He was running out of time. The fusion wouldn't last much longer. Shattuck reverted to his super form to save as much time as he could. Boo flew towards him and began punching and kicking, with Shattuck easily dodging and counterattacking when the opportunity presented itself. From inside Boo, Vegito diffused back into Goku and Vegeta. They both made their way through Boo before finding where everyone is. Knuckles and the rest trapped in some kind of pods. In this version of the Super Boo fight, since Shattuck is keeping him busy, Boo doesn't realize what's going on. Goku and Vegeta cut out Knuckles, Amy, and Tien, then spot Fat Boo from within another pod. Vegeta suggests leaving him here to die, but Goku comments that this Boo wasn't evil and should be saved just like the others. Vegeta glares at him while he watches Goku cut Fat Boo out of the pod. From outside, Shattuck is noticing Boo getting weaker and losing some of the details of his friends. Tien's eye was gone, and Boo wasn't wearing a dress, though that one seemed more like a blessing for both of them. Shattuck was having an easier time wailing on Boo, knocking him around and taunting him, much like Vegito. Then, it happened. Boo stopped moving as he grabbed his head and started screaming. From out of his head came Goku, Vegeta, Tien, Knuckles, Amy, and Boo? Everyone looked to Shattuck, who smirked and winked, and then got ready for what Boo was doing. The Fat Boo was unconscious while the other Boo had started to transform again. This time he was shorter, slightly taller than Shattuck. He had a glare that seemed different from what he previously had though. This new form, Kid Boo, had looked among the Z fighters, then set his eyes on the fusion. Shattuck didn't give him a chance to ready an attack before flying into him with a kick to throw him away. He then spin dashed and rocketed to Boo faster than he could react. He nailed him in the chest, then grabbed his head, making him spin with them. Once they were spinning fast enough, Shattuck threw Boo into the ground. He then started throwing numerous Chaos Spears into the ground where Boo was, letting the energy build up, and ready to Chaos Kamehameha. He yelled to Kid Boo to go to hell before firing it. However, once he outstretched his hands, he defused back into Sonic and Shadow. Damn, the fusion just ran out. Guess Shattuck used more energy than they thought against Nazo. Sonic charged a Kamehameha, then told Shadow to throw a Chaos Sphere. They both threw their attacks at the energy, causing it to erupt. Gohan, Raditz, and 18 had just arrived to see the explosion. Kid Boo slowly rose from the now crater without a single scratch on him and started laughing. Sonic and Goku flew at Boo and started trying their best to damage him, but to no avail, as Boo grabbed Sonic and used him as a meat shield for Goku to hit, then tossed him away. Goku chuckled nervously and apologized to Sonic. Once he did, Boo punched Goku in the face, then began stomping in place. At first, no one knew what he was doing, until Goku was kicked out of nowhere. Then Vegeta, then Tien, then Amy. Shadow managed to dodge and tried to come up with a plan. He knows that the only other being with regenerative properties had to be erased completely by an attack. At least that's how Nazo was killed. So far, any damage done to Kid Buu is superficial. They could blow him up and he'd just come back good as new. He asked everyone is there any attack they could use to wipe Kid Buu out in one go. Everyone shrugged aside from Knuckles. Knuckles says he has an idea, but it'll take some time and he'll need to keep Kid Buu busy and away from him. Knuckles flew high into the air and held up both of his hands and he started to focus as energy began forming into a ball. Shadow flew at Kid Buu and started punching him, but he was exhausted. The fusion took it out of him and Sonic and they were running low. Kid Buu kicked Shadow in the chest and followed up with an uppercut before just swinging on his face. Gohan and 18 went to assist and get Shadow away. Kid Buu saw them flying in and kicked Shadow towards them. 18 caught him while Gohan managed to land a solid hit on Kid Buu's face before grabbing his antenna and swinging him around and throwing him away from the area. Vegeta and Raditz followed up and each began to punch and kick Kid Buu simultaneously. It was bizarre for Goku to see that his brother and Vegeta were sort of working together without either mentioning a word about it. Raditz flew in and grabbed Kid Buu by his arms and held him long enough for Vegeta to fly in and deliver some gut shots and follow up with a roundhouse to Buu's head, send him flying again. Kid Buu was getting pissed and let out a yell before curling into a ball and spinning. He launched into Vegeta, throwing him towards Raditz, who was getting ready to catch him. Kid Buu then shot past Vegeta and around Raditz and nailed him in the spine, forcing the two to slam into each other. He then appeared above him and ready to death ball and threw it at them both, pushing them into the ground with the ball exploding. They were down, but not out as they rose to their feet. Raditz refusing to revert back to his base, and Vegeta not letting Raditz upstage him out of stubbornness. Kid Buu cackled and held up his hand for another death ball, Raditz and Vegeta readying a double Sunday and Gallic Gun respectively. Goku instant transmitted behind them and ready to Kamehameha. Kid Buu threw the death ball and they fired their beams, forcing a struggle between them. Knuckles yelled that it was almost ready but just needed a little more time and energy. They only have one shot. Gohan, Sonic, Shadow, and Amy all started to lend their energy in a hurry. From the realm of the Kais, Krillin and the kids were watching everything. He told them to also lend their power. Back to Knuckles, the Super Spirit Bomb was ready. Now he just needed Kid Buu to get closer. The three Saiyans were starting to push the ball back and Kid Buu was not happy. He abandoned trying to push the death ball down and vanished to safety. Sonic yelled to them to get Buu closer. Goku instant transmitted behind Kid Buu and kicked him to where Sonic was. Vegeta fired a big bang attack which knocked him closer. Once he was close enough, Knuckles yelled and threw down the Super Spirit Bomb. Kid Buu looked up and caught it, trying to push it back. Knuckles transformed into a super form with Sonic and Shadow appearing next to him and doing the same as they both started pushing. Gohan and Goku joined, making it weigh down more on Kid Buu, but somehow the imp was starting to lift it back up. Vegeta was going to fire a Gallic Gun, but Knuckles told him not to do it. It could either make it blow up too early, or help Buu push it back. Sonic and Shadow's forms flickered as they didn't have much energy left. Raditz looked between them both and yelled to Kakarot that he's got this. Everyone yelled for Raditz to stop, but he wasn't listening. He flew behind Kid Buu and grabbed his hands, holding them behind him. He told them to do it. He has his mind made up and it's too late to stop him. He yelled to Kakarot that this is what their parents wanted, for him to look out for his brother. Is he going to stop him from doing what they asked? Stop being a brat, Kakarot, and do it! Knuckles yelled for everyone to push and they did. Raditz and Kid Buu were consumed by the ball of energy. Buu letting out a pained scream as he began breaking apart and crumbling away, and Raditz giving a smile, apologizing to Launch and Ranch and saying to Kakarot that he'll see him later. The Spirit Bomb soon detonated, and when everything had settled down, both Raditz and Kid Buu were gone. The only thing that managed to survive was a small red bandana. Goku lowered to the ground and picked up the tattered bandana and stared at it silently. Ranch had seen the whole thing and was already on the brink of tears. Her father was gone, but he went out saving the world. Krillin and the others tried to console her, but it was no use. She was too hysterical. Goku instant transmitted to Krillin and knelt down to Ranch before reassuring her that Raditz will be back soon. He gave her the bandana and told her to hold on to that, and once he's back, she can give it to him. This is where I'll end things off here. This was a bitch to record, but I did have fun writing this. Trust me, I had plans of other people fusing, like I originally was going to have Sonic and Amy fuse. That was going to be funny. I was going to plan to have maybe either Goku and Raditz fusing, or maybe Raditz and Vegeta fusing, or Raditz and Gohan fusing, since they have a better relationship in this What If. But I was limiting myself on different things, one of which being I was trying not to have too many forms or too many characters appear that I just couldn't find renders of, because that was just going to be a pain in the ass. But I mean, I think this went well. Tell me what you think in the comments. I'm gonna get out of here because this is an hour-long recording. As always, I'm Hyper46. Keep a lookout for 7 Chaos and with Chaos. Control the like button, and I'll see you all later. I'm going to go throw myself out of a window. Take care, everyone.